This next poem is something of an indulgence. Requested by its author, it's a poem I wrote recently about a cherished aunt, Lydia, who was in many ways a second mother to me. She was born into a large family on an estate in Alnwick, where her father was employed as the gamekeeper. She was adopted by her mother's sister, who lived in Hartlepool, married to the Conservative mayor of that town. Adoption in 1913 amounted to a handwritten piece of paper stating the arrangement and signed by both the blood and adoptive parents. Lydia grew to dislike her aunt, who had lost interest in her adopted child as she grew more independent and less biddable. She remained fond of her adoptive father, however, whom she felt was severely dominated by his wife. Lydia was a teacher who retired as head of a school in Keynsham. She was a lifelong pacifist and Labour Party activist who became an alderman of the city of Bath. She could remember the shelling of Hartlepool by the German Navy in 1914. Coincidentally, my two elder children were both born in Hartlepool. I've not made it clear, but Lydia was my mother's friend, not an actual relative. All our parents' friends were styled uncle or aunt in those days. She was my aunt through choice, and no gene pool could have given me a better, more real aunt. Lydia, 1909 to 1999. She was 4 when her auntie took her away to the south to a dark northern town. Bred in Northumbrian countryside, wild, child of the castle, gamekeeper and wife. What must she have thought, wrenched from the woods and that life? Thought of the red brick, the noise and the smoke, the industrial ways of the seafaring folk. Childless, her aunt had come to the house to pluck from her sister's numerous brood. 4 adults had signed the docket she kept in a tin, as you could in those days, as they did what they did. Kept tinned till her right mind befuddled and left. What must she have thought as, 80 years on, she lifted that lid? She was called Lydia, and so was her aunt. Capricious the grounds for that callous transplant. She'd siblings older and younger than she. What must she have thought? Why me, and why me? Was the point of departure matter of fact? Did they swear to wear grooves in the 70-mile trek? To visit and hug her by pony and trap? Were there tears and remorse and being held back? Did she go with her aunt and the friendly old gent, the town's undertaker and town mayor-elect? Go unaware, but thinking it strange, so little was said, with her aunt and the man to their big brick Hartlepool town-dweller's grange, and the shop full of boxes housing the dead? What did she think? What had they said? Her aunt dressed her up in the costliest clothes frilled and ribboned that stultified play. Even the costumes for her dolls to adorn eclipsed the dull garb she and sisters had worn. But the doll of all dolls was her aunt's to enjoy, to dress and display for the neighbours each day, to wheel through the town or clasp by the hand, stroll through the park, stand still for the band. In time her aunt's doll's vocabulary grew, its voice box extended and opinions too. As all things in play will eventually pall, a Pinocchio wilful was no fun at all. 40 years on, her stepmother dead, childless Lydia was my aunt instead. Just a friend of my mother's, no blood shared at all. She was there at my birth, there for good and for all. It's 70-odd years since the day that we met, her love beyond question till the day of her death. Never to life's trials and fragility deaf, she was mentor and constant, unvarying stay, campaigner and teacher, always ready to play, frugal at home, and so generous away. She was 80 when Alzheimer's took her away, sharpening some past and blurring today. Away from her loved ones, all strangers now, to a large stone-built townhouse, half remembered somehow. Dreadful and haunted, anxiety unveiled, the thin waif within her, the abducted child. We talked in the present with fragments of past, recycling each sentence, knowing not one would last. At her funeral, some carers came up and said how little they'd known of the life that she'd led. She'd simply been Lydia, so kindly and mild, reduced to one name, like a 4-year-old child.
With an open mind, on the open